Hey friends, so I'm back with another Felicity Jane project share. I am doing a 12 by 12 layout this time using the April Grace kit, and I will be doing a grid sort of layout here. It wasn't my first choice or first intention to do this sort of layout. I did want to do a layout with some of these pictures that I took in like a little mini photo shoot at home sort of thing, but I ended up using like all of them and not just one. I printed them out like big to do like one photo on a layout, and then I also printed them out in little 2x2 squares for like my scrap therapy and stuff like that, or project life or whatever, but I ended up using the 12 by 12 squares for this layout. And so I have 4 photos that are 2x2. I said 12 by 12 before, I meant 2 by 2. And here I am just cutting down some of this mint cardstock from the kit to back my photos on. So the squares that I end up cutting out are a little bit bigger than 2 by 2, but that's because I want to have a nice mint border around my photos. Now my photos, I took them in front of my really big minty teal wall, and so the wall kind of color is very harsh in these photos, and they sort of kind of go with the kit colors, but I wanted to get some of this mint color in on the background. I was gonna use pink, but it's like, I don't know, it's such a contrast, and I'm like, I'll just stick with the green. So I matted all my photos behind on top of that mint paper, and I'm cutting out squares of pattern paper from the patterns in the kit using the mint square that I already cut out. So not the photo 2 by 2, but like the little larger one. That way all of the squares on my page will be even. And so here I'm fussing with how to, I guess, organize everything onto the page so that it's symmetrical and that all the squares are centered. And you'll see later on in this process that I end up cutting down this 12 by 12 white cardstock so that I can add another Felicity Jane paper behind it to act as a border. And so I'm basically like layering squares on top of squares in this particular layout because I'm keeping with that symmetrical square look. And so here I am trying to figure out what pattern papers besides that beautiful floral that I'm going to make squares out of. I wanted to use this Swiss dot tag. Is a white tag with Swiss dots on it. It's from the die cut pack. I wanted to use that there, and I wanted to have my title on it. And so that's like the only square that isn't really a square, and you'll see me here putting down the pieces for the title. Now for the embellishments, I'm basically using every black and white embellishment that's in this kit. I wanted to keep the embellishments black and white and have the pattern papers shine through. That mint paper in the center is not going to stay there. That's just for placement purposes. And I think I end up going back and cutting out a square out of this beautiful mint paper. This one just has florals on it, so it's not just a solid mint, even though it's the same mint color, but it has that beautiful floral pattern on it. And honestly, I just kind of wanted to throw every single floral pattern paper onto this layout, and I think I did. I think these are the 2 florals that are in the kit. I'm surprised I didn't throw in the rainbow paper because that's my other favorite paper from this collection. But yeah, so that mint paper goes there, and the last paper, the last square, ends up being the backside of that pink floral paper, which is just, it's like a ledger. It's just lines, basically, black and white lines. I thought about using this heart paper, but it was too much. The hearts were just a little too spaced out. I'm playing around with some vellum squares from, oh my god, that's an old kit from the Brook kit, I think. Didn't no go. This is where I pulled out the little ledger, and I thought that was fitting because it balanced out the Swiss dots on the right hand side, and it gave me a space to do my journaling. And so all of my papers and everything are basically like put down, they're decided on. I didn't glue anything yet because I was still working on placement of everything. But right now I'm just looking through all of the embellishments, and I'm trying to get most of my embellishing down. And again, I'm only using the black and white things, so like the puffy stickers and the black and white die cuts and stuff like that, and the chipboard as well. But I eventually pull out some more stuff to add to this. Here I'm looking at my ribbons. I have an assortment of ribbons, and I wanted to get a ribbon to put through the tag there, and so I picked this mint green ribbon. It has like a floral pattern in white, and I thought that one matched the best, and I am just stapling it to the tag so that it hangs out there. I do end up trimming the ribbon a little bit because once I get like this whole cluster kind of situated in the middle of my page, the ribbon just hangs out a little too much. But I thought the mint color complemented the other mint, even though on camera it doesn't really look like it does, but it does. It balances it out, and I do end up using the ribbon again in a different place later on. And so I was looking at the backing, like paper to make like a border, and I chose this pink on pink pattern, and I just took a quick photograph of how I had everything positioned so that I can start building up my layout. And so you'll see here, this is where I end up trimming down the white cardstock so that I can use that pink pattern as a border around the paper. And so since that pink pattern is 12 by 12, I need to cut down the 12 by 12 white cardstock in order to have that border showing through. And don't worry, I don't use this entire pattern paper. I actually end up getting it at the end. So I don't glue this down yet, but I wanted to get it positioned so that I can measure out where my little squares need to go. And so I try to eyeball it at first, and it just didn't work. And so I eventually pull out my ruler, and what I end up doing is I end up measuring 2 inches from where the white pattern paper starts to the center. So I give myself a 2-inch white border around where all of the photos and pattern squares are glued down. So that is like a little process of me doing the measurements, and I do end up marking all of it out with a pencil because Lord knows that I can't remember where things need to be. And I do end up erasing the pencil marks, but I try to do it as lightly as possible so that it all erases cleanly. And so that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm making my little white border, my 2-inch border there. And so now I have these guidelines of where the squares need to go. And so once I have them down, I fiddle a lot with it, and at the end of the day, it's not perfect. My squares are not adhered evenly, but I end up doing something that it doesn't really matter. And so here I am just lightly tacking down the papers, and I just use a piece of double-sided tape in the center because my intention was to sew them down. I do take this layout to my sewing machine, but I actually don't end up sewing the photographs down, even though my intention was to do like a white stitch around it. But since it had the mint border on it already, I decided, you know what, let me just do a stitch on the pattern papers and just leave the photos as is. So I am lightly tacking down all of the papers except for the tag with my title on it, because I don't need to sew that anywhere. That's just going to be there. It's like a little special thing. And then I eventually take this to my sewing machine and just stitch a nice, simple, straight stitched white border. Before I do that though, I'm adhering everything down. While I'm doing it, I'm also erasing the guidelines so that I don't see them, because once I stitch everything down, there's no way that I'll be able to lift any of these pieces up to erase those lines very well. So that's just my process here. And so you see here that I just sewed the pattern papers. I sewed a nice little border around them, and I'm just cutting off all of the excess threads, and now I can start building up my layout. And so since my squares, they're not perfect, they're a little bit wonky, not quite aligned correctly, I decided to ruffle up all the edges of the squares. And so I'm just kind of, doing that trick where you just kind of pull up and tear the edges a little bit and kind of rough them up a little. It creates a lot of texture on the layout, and I actually like how it ended up looking. It looked, it made the layout look a little bit scrappy, a little bit more crafty instead of like precisely like polished and everything, if you will. And I actually end up doing the same thing on the photos as well. I end up roughing up that mint paper that the photos are backed on. So here I'm trying to position the tag a little bit, and I think I got it where it needed to be roughly on the layout. And here I am, since I didn't sew down those photographs, I am adding more adhesive so that they stay put very well, and then I can go in and ruffle up the edges. And so I end up doing that for all 4 of the photographs. So once I have all of the squares put down and all the edges all roughed up a little bit, then I can start rebuilding my layout. And I'm just repositioning all of the embellishments that I had on the layout prior to me taking them all off. I'm just putting them back where they need to be. And I do believe I end up beginning to adhere things down. I know I adhere the chipboard pieces down first because I was very satisfied with where they all were. But you can see here that I'm repositioning things, I'm replacing things. I end up replacing one of the die cuts with a puffy sticker, etc. End up replacing a puffy sticker with a different puffy sticker, and just kind of fiddling around with the embellishments really. So here I think I started adhering all the chipboard pieces because these are the chipboard pieces that I knew from the start that I wanted to be on the layout, and I kind of knew where I wanted them to be as well. And so I'm just adhering them down with some double-sided tape. And so now I'm pulling out some of the epoxy stickers from previous kits. So I have both the Lindsay Hearts epoxy stickers and the Bailey, which was the last previous kit, epoxy stickers, because I realized that I'm only using black and white embellishments, but I do need some sort of color. I need a pop of color, specifically pink, and some of that mint to balance out the mint on the other side. And so I was going to use this black label from the die cut pack, but it was just too much and I needed something pink on that side. And so I decided to fussy cut a pink label out of the wonderful label sheet, that paper, oh my goodness, so many different label colors there. So I chose one of the pinks that was in the middle, not the light pink, not the hot pink, but somewhere in the middle there. and I'm going to put it there on top of the lined paper. And I took one of the Lindsay epoxy hearts in mint to accent the top corner there, because I like my layouts to be symmetrical, and since you have that mint ribbon on that side, I felt like there needed to be some sort of that mint on the left hand side as well. I also pulled out some of the colorful chipboard bits to layer there, and now I'm looking through ephemera packs from previous kits, and I believe I pulled out a few pieces from the Bailey kit, which is the kit that was prior to the Grace kit. What I love about the Felicity Jane kits is that a lot of the kit pieces match each other. It's amazing. I love it. So I can like mix and match different kits on a project. So from the Bailey kit, I pulled out a heart, a pink heart, and the little bubble sign that says XOXOXO, and a ribbon. I don't actually end up using the little bow ribbon piece, but I do end up using the heart and the little like speech bubble there. And so I'm just kind of putting everything down here, adhering my label. I adhered that the little star cluster down there. It's a puffy sticker and a embellishment piece. So with this label, I decided to take one of the scrap pieces of the ribbon and just kind of tuck it under the label, just to add some of that mint color on that side. And also adds more texture, and I love adding texture to my projects. So here I'm putting down these colorful chipboard bits, and the pink one says remember and the green one says this, and so it serves as like a subtitle for my journaling. And once I have that down, I decide to finally put my title down, and the title I decided to go for was Smile, Love, and I thought that was fitting since like the photographs are all of me, and they were all of like I like doing random photo shoots. Sometimes when I need a new photograph for like a layout or something, I'll just do it. Like I'll set up my camera and just take a bunch of them. And so that's where all of these were from. These were actually my favorite photographs from that take, and I took like over 100 photographs. And so yeah, you know, when you take a photo, they tell you to smile, and so I'm just like, smile, love. And then the little pieces that I put around everything, so like the chipboard phrases that I chose were happiness, memories, and then I think the memories one kind of piggybacks off of the remember this, and then what I end up writing in the journaling spot is just a little affirmation to myself. It says, you are beautiful, you are strong, and you are worthy. And I just thought that was a nice little sentiment, since this layout was just kind of all about me. So I end up repositioning that puffy heart sticker into the center, and here I am wanting to put that heart ephemera piece from the Bailey kit on top of it. And so I took some rubber, a foam square, and I was fussing around with it a bit, and then I realized that it was a little too raised because the foam was a little too thick, so I ended up just cutting a bit off of it and adding more double-sided tape and repositioning it back on so it didn't look so raised. And I know the puffy sticker is a little puffy, but I didn't want the heart to be higher than every other element. It was higher than even the chipboard, and I just didn't want it. So for the top, I ended up using that little speech bubble that says XOXO, and I embellish it with a little pink sticker from the Bailey kit, also the Bailey kit. So I used mostly the Grace kit, but along with little embellishments from the Bailey kit and the Lindsay kit. And Lindsay's quite old. Lindsay is, I think, last year's February kit. And again, I will leave the link down below to the Felicity Jane shop, where you can find all of these fun bits for yourself. So here you see I gutted out that pink paper. I was not going to waste that entire paper on the background here, and I'm just repositioning the main page, my white cardstock with my layout on it, onto the page, and I'm using just double-sided tape just to tape this down so that I can flip it over and properly adhere it without it moving, because you know sometimes these things move and then you adhere it and then it ends up being crooked. And for me, for a person who really likes symmetry, I like things to be even and symmetrical. For me, it's more appealing to the eye. Anything that is crooked or like not properly spaced, it just drives me mad. But yeah, so I adhered the back to the back, and right now I am just writing out what I want on that little journaling space there, and I do it in pencil because I know me. I don't know what it is about journaling on camera specifically, but I always tend to mess up a little bit. And yeah, so I like pre-writing everything in pencil lightly and then going over it in pen, or just marking up where I need to go over it in pen and then writing down in pen, because it's kind of like the stamping the first time that I do it is just bad, and so I have to find these little I guess safeguards so that I don't ruin my entire project, because that's the worst when you do a bit of journaling and you don't like how your handwriting looks, or you don't like the placement of it, but you wrote on the thing, and in order to like redo it, you'll have to cover it up or you have to start all over. It's terrible. And so that's basically what I did here. I did reposition that little label cluster a little bit so that it's further down. I did end up ripping my paper, but that was fine. That was a quick fix. But yeah, so I have my journaling down, and that is my layout. These are the photos here. I really hope you all enjoyed this project. Make sure to check out the Felicity Jane blog to see more photographs and kind of like my written out how I did everything, and yeah, check out Felicity Jane. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really hope you enjoyed, and I hope you are all well. Stay safe, friends, and I will see you all next time. Bye!